former tag team champions.
Mm-hmm.
Let's put it that way. Great wrestlers right there, both Jarrett and Owen Hart. But I'm going to go the King of Hearts, Owen Hart.
I agree. I think Jeff Jarrett was pretty much a joke in WWE. I don't think that he was used properly. That was right before the Attitude Era started, and they really were still trying to keep it kids related, and they kind of made Jeff Jarrett look like a cartoon. So I'm going to have to go with Owen Hart on this as well. Moving on, we have the Canadian guy defeating Cody Rhodes, and that other Canadian guy, Bret the Hitman Hart, defeating Pedro Morales, setting up the old Canada match, Bret the Hitman Hart versus that Canadian guy.
Great matchup. Just phenomenal on both ends. I love both these guys. You know me, Kev. I'm going with that Canadian guy.
I knew.
I can't not pick him.
I'm tossed because that Canadian guy was a phenomenal wrestler, but I can't forgive what he did. But it has nothing to do with his wrestling ability. I'm not a Bret the Hitman Hart fan. Nanny's ears are probably ringing off her head right now, and she's probably cursing me out. It's really hard for me to pick here. I have to go with that Canadian guy due to his wrestling ability, and I have to put what he did afterwards aside and just stick with the wrestling ability. And Bret Hart was great. I don't think he was the best. I don't think he was the best there was, the best there is, and the best there ever will be. I think he's a top 10 wrestler of all time, but he's definitely not. He's not a top 5 guy in my opinion. Probably gonna burn in Canadian hell for that one. But anyway, moving on, we got the bottom bracket and probably the two upsets of the bracket. It was Greg the Hammer Valentine knocking off Razor Ramon.
Oof.
And Tito Santana knocking off Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Setting up Greg the Hammer Valentine versus Tito Santana, a classic Intercontinental Championship match from the early 80s. Here's my feel as far as The Rock and Santana. The Rock, when he was the Intercontinental Champion, wasn't The Rock that we knew later on. So that to me, that's less of an upset because Tito Santana in his prime was better than The Rock when The Rock was first introduced as an Intercontinental Champion. First he was Rocky Maivia, and then he became The Rock, but it just wasn't the same as he is, later in his career when he was like the ultimate wrestler, like number one marquee face of the franchise.
Yeah.
As far as the Hammer, Greg the Hammer Valentine, I follow Greg the Hammer Valentine's career pretty much up and down. Even I've gone back historically to look it up for days before I was even born. Greg the Hammer Valentine was a phenomenal wrestler. A lot of people are only going to remember him in the late 80s and the early 90s when he was a fat jobber for the WWE and going to shows and seeing how bad he looks now because of 40 plus years of wrestling. Greg the Hammer Valentine was a phenomenal wrestler. Scott Hall was a phenomenal wrestler, but I still feel if you were going to go straight up between the two of them and in their primes, I think Greg the Hammer Valentine, due to submission, this was the proper call.
It's a great matchup. I mean, old school prevails over new school on both those matchups.
Yeah.
I do really, really like Tito Santana a lot. Again, I haven't been following wrestling as long as you, Kev. I mean, I'm only around 24 years of wrestling, but I mean, I remember Tito Santana growing up. He might have not been in his prime when I started watching, but I'm going to go Tito Santana.
So, Tito Santana over Greg the Hammer?
Yep.
Okay. I'm tossed as well. I love Tito. Again, he's another one of these guys that people are going to remember from his jobbing years in WWE. I'm going to go with the Hammer on this one. Greg the Hammer Valentine. So let's recap. We got Tito versus Greg the Hammer Valentine. We got Bret the Hitman Hart versus that Canadian guy. Jeff Jarrett versus Owen Hart. CM Punk versus Macho Man Randy Savage. Honky Tonk Man versus Edge. Rob Van Dam versus Rick Rude. William Regal versus Kofi Kingston. And Shawn Michaels versus Chris Jericho. That's round number 4. We'll have results next week. And we'll see who's moving on. I mean, we got some great matches, and we've had some great matches since the opening round. So I'm loving this tournament. I like it better than one we had last year. Last year we kind of threw some wrestlers together that were either champion or always in the mix of the championship, old school and new school, and we even grabbed some guys from TNA and ROH. But this is strictly WWF, WWE title holders. 72 champions, 72 wrestlers have held this title.
Yep.
It's
whoever wins this tournament is the true champion.
It's true. I mean, right down to current day. I mean, before, when this tournament started, Miz was champion. Now it's Dolph Ziggler. Both were in this tournament early. Both exited early. But I mean, it's just 72 champions in the history of the World Wrestling Federation / entertainment, and it's going to come down to who knows. I mean, two studs. I mean, it doesn't matter who you got. It's just going to be two absolute wrestling studs, wrestling legends at the end when push comes to shove. And somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose. We found that out last year in our Macho Man Randy Savage versus CM Punk, and it was Randy Savage victorious and winning year number 1. And he's put himself in very good position again to repeat as champion, if you think about it, because we both picked him. So if he does get the edge, he'll take on the winner of Owen Hart and Jeff Jarrett, and I think he's far more superior than either one of those guys.
I agree, and in my mind, my pick would be Macho Man over Owen in that matchup. And then he would have to face who would he have to face after that?
He would have to face the winner of Canadian guy, Bret Hart, Greg the Hammer, and Tito.
And in my mind, it would be that Canadian guy in that matchup. It would be Macho Man versus that Canadian guy, which I would love.
And if I remember correctly, they both took on each other in last year's, and obviously Randy was victorious. So.
Yep.
But I don't know. I love these tournaments.
I love the tournament style of anything. People who know me outside of Damage 365 know I'm a big tournament guy. I love tournaments when it comes to like March Madness and things like that. So a wrestling tournament is just the epitome of everything that I enjoy.
And I like the actual real tournaments, but I like when they do it correctly. I hate like WrestleMania 4 to me was the ultimate of wrestling tournaments. I don't think they'll ever be able to replicate that. It was just a ridiculous tournament with, I mean, basically the entire roster was involved in that tournament outside of, I think, 3 separate matches. There was a tag team match for the championship. There was a match for the Intercontinental Championship, and then Hogan, of course. No, Hogan didn't even have a match. Hogan was in the tournament. There was three other matches, I think, of WrestleMania 4 besides the tournament, and it was just, I mean, it was just ridiculous. I mean, from Hogan and Andre to Rick Rude and Jake the Snake, to Butch Reed, the One Man Gang, Randy Savage, Greg the Hammer Valentine, Tito Santana, Don Morocco. I mean, you could go on forever with the names that were in that tournament. And back in that day, wrestling, when they slapped their guys on a poster, they didn't slap their guys on a poster of like 4 guys. It's not like SummerSlam. They had Lesnar and Cena, and then in the background they had Reigns and Orton and Ambrose and Seth Rollins.
It was everybody.
It was everybody. They slapped all like 40 guys as headshots, and you saw all 40 guys regularly. There was no Monday Night Raw where you saw the same 12 matches, the same 6 matches with the same 12 guys. I mean, it just wasn't like that. I mean, it was, I know time.
Everybody on the roster was being used and used relatively properly too. There was a couple guys that could have been used better or a little bit worse, but it's totally different than nowadays. And in my mind, I miss 15 to 20 years ago. I may not be able to remember too much of it that well, but still.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not a big fan of wrestling when it was in the Attitude Era, but I can't deny what the Attitude Era did for wrestling. So, but at this time, we're gonna take our guest. So let's hold on right now, and we'll get her on. Welcome back, everybody, and at this time, we'd like to welcome our guest of the show. She is with Maryland Championship Wrestling. She's former commissioner of MCW, and the name of our show, of every knockout begins with Kaye. Jessie Kaye joins us. Welcome to the show, Jessie.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So, unfortunately, it says every KO begins with K because, it had a character limit, so sorry. But you know what it means.
I love it. I love it. I'm probably gonna steal that actually. I'll write that down. Put it in the back pocket.
It's all right. You can use it. Use it for future. Just make sure you tag us on Facebook. So.
I guess I'll give you that.
All right, cool. I appreciate that. I mean, I've seen some of your videos and some of your pictures. I'd honestly be afraid to mess around with you anyway. You look very angry when you wrestle.
Yeah, you should be afraid.
Has anybody ever told you that you really make really, really angry faces while you wrestle?
Yeah, well, people said I have cool facial expressions, which I appreciate, but I don't know about angry.
Yeah,
But I guess I am angry. I'm angry and bitter.
Very, very angry. But, I appreciate you taking the time. Welcome to the show. And I'm joined with my co-host, Nick. And we just got a couple questions we'd like to ask you. And, maybe educate some of your fan base about, how you got into the business and, like, who your inspirations were and things like that. So, like, what made you get involved in wrestling? What made you wake up one day and say, this is what I want to do?
Well, I actually, it's something that I grew up watching. I didn't have any family members that got me into it. It was really by chance. I was young, just flipping through the channels one night, and it was on, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I kept it on, and then I found out what the times were, as far as what times they were on television. They were doing a campaign with 7-Eleven at the time, and so I saw it on the Slurpee cups and whatnot, and on this day, SmackDown on this day. I'm like, okay, all right. So I got into it that way and just watched every week religiously. And then I was about high school, and I always wanted to write for professional wrestling. The reason being is because I was never physical at all. I wasn't an athlete or anything like that. I was overweight. I was 200 plus pounds. And so I just, I sat behind a computer and wrote a lot. Like I would put me fiction and me wrestling or writing storylines or things like that. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be the creative aspect of it because that's when I was a freshman in high school. They said, okay, gotta start thinking about what you want to do and what college you want to go to and what for. So I was like, okay, well, I went on the WWE corporate site. I was like, what do I want to do? So I saw creative writer, communications, or equivalent. What the hell does equivalent mean? I don't get it. But basically it was something along those lines. So I said, okay, I want to be in communications. I want to get, that's what I want to study. And so that was my goal, to be in the creative aspect of business. And then junior year of high school, my friend got me to go to the gym, and I was only looked cool for all of 5 minutes. I couldn't handle 5 minutes a junior in high school, which is pretty bad. And I needed something to kind of push me through. And I just was thinking about it as I went to the gym more regularly and things, and like, what's really stopping me here? What is it really? Is it, I'm not handicapped. I'd like to think I'm a smart kid, okay? So why don't I just give it a shot? Why don't I